The author starts the chapter talking about the telos, which means the end or the goal of something. In that way, many possibilities of what is the telos of the universities appeared. He says that it could be truth, because many universities around the world consider this term as the main pillar of the university education. It also has some words that are derivates from truth, such as knowledge. But what makes a university a trustful institution? Well, the main reason is because many governments around the world consider that discovering truth and sharing it as a public good is a noble goal. Without mention that a percent of the money obtained by taxes is allocated to public universities. So it should be trustful because we are paying for it. Taking into account this, according to the author, a good university is the one that transmits knowledge and helps the students on their process of acquiring it. A good university also has to promote good learning practices between the students and teachers, because professors have to give their pupils tools, skills, and habits in order to help them understanding the truth and promoting a constant seeking of truth in their daily life. In addition, the author disagrees with the idea of universities have to spread thoughts of progress, change, or making the world a better place, because if universities teach this kind of ideas, there wouldn't be a priority trying to reach the truth over everything. Contrary of this, community and social justice could corrupt many thoughts by desires of a social group. In the other hand, the author agrees with Alice Dreger, who urges that good scholarship must put the search of truth first and the quest for social justice second. And there is a very marked reason for this claiming, and it is basically because, first of all, you need to find the truth, the answers, and the knowledge that will allow you to see the points of view of a community. In that way, we could infer if the cause of a social group is free from desires and greed. Taking into account these ideas, the author proposes 4 hints or advices in order to create wiser universities based on the telos of truth. The first advice is entwine your identity with freedom of inquiry. This talks about how people with different ideas are pointed and punished in the university. Those practices are totally opposed from the initial proposal of securing free speech, academic freedom, and freedom of inquiry. In order to correct these problems, the author proposes to renew the old proposal and create a new one that take into account the current context of the universities and how people have been punished because of their thoughts. In 2015, a committee from University of Chicago, led by Jeffrey Stone, wrote a new commitment to free speech and academic freedom, taking into account the new implications and environments of 40 universities. The new document exposes that debates can be suppressed because of the discontent of some people. It also rejects every discriminatory practice in which individuals are offensive, unwise, immoral, or wrong-headed. In addition, colleges should revise the policies that are applied at the campus in order to protect even more the rights of each institutional actor, because there could be cases in which free speech is punished even by the own institution. Another proposal that could help universities to reach a free punishment environment is avoiding to replying public outrage. This is because sometimes people at the top are involved into controversies that call the attention of public institutions, and most of the times they don't know how to cope with the pressure. In that way, university presidents tend to act rashly, but the author does an invitation to avoid these controversial cases in order to protect the institution's credibility and policies. The author also touches a very controversial topic, which is demonstrations and the way that some people have to carry on them. He explains that demonstrations have to keep a respectful environment in order to protect freedom of expression and people who have different ideas from demonstrators. In that way, he rejects every kind of disrespectful demonstration in which different ideas could be violated. The second advice is pick the best mix of people for the mission. In a first moment, the author suggests to admit older people in the universities. This is because he thinks that having older students could generate a positive change for the institution, thanks to the experience that older students have at the moment of entering to the university. Another characteristic that deserves to be pointed here is trying to have a preference with the students that come from schools in which they learn to debate openly and without any prejudice. Finally, the author proposes to create policies in which the university protects not only the diversity taking into account physical aspects, but also the institutions should protect diversity of thinking, which is a very violated right in universities' environment. The third advice is orient and educate for productive disagreement. First of all, the author does an invitation to be strong and don't react in a bad way to the critics that a student could receive. Reacting with wrath and feeling offended because of a critic is a weak way to cope with critics. Students should receive these advices as feedback, and they should try to rebuild their ideas, taking into account constructive critics. In that way, a strong idea could be stronger based on the opinions of many people. Finishing this piece of advice, the author suggests to separate the emotional thinking from the rational one. This is because following emotional ideas can be dangerous if our purpose is to follow the truth path. On the contrary, a rational idea takes into account the context, the pros and cons of an stance, or even another ideas that could support the main one. And last but not least, a rational idea always tries to follow the truth. The fourth advice is draw a larger circle around the community. This last advice is about how strong can be a community if they walk on the same destination together. The author explains that finding common interests and goals, a community could start getting stronger. These principles can be spread in an educative context using common ideas or viewpoints, creating a collective force that defends its stances, but also takes into account external suggestions and critics.
created using Powtoon.